Resourceful Designer, episode 195, Design Hacks to Increase Productivity.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He was named Mark because it can easily be said in French and English. Mark Descote.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Whether you're a longtime fan or this is your first time listening to the podcast, I do appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your day to spend with me as I discuss running a graphic design business. Now, in this week's episode, I'm going to share some design hacks that I've implemented over the years that have helped me to speed up my production when working on projects. I'm also going to share a newly discovered resource on how to keep track of your time. Now, what have I been up to? Well, earlier this week, I attended what they call a year in review. It's a local organization in our city that's put together to kind of promote business and living and that in the area. Well, every year they put on this presentation called a year in review where they discuss new businesses, business expansions, achievements, and all that sort of stuff. So it's a great networking event with all business-minded people. And I got to catch up with a lot of people I hadn't seen in a while. Some of them I hadn't seen since last year's event. But I also got to meet a bunch of new people, new entrepreneurs, new business owners, and start building relationships with them. So that was a great time. That happened this past Wednesday. I also received 2 new podcast clients. Both of them are looking for podcast artwork. And what's interesting is they both came from an article that featured podcast branding, my podcast company geared towards podcast artwork. This article listed me, and both of these people separately came to me saying that's how they discovered me, was through this article that somebody had written and had listed a bunch of people as resources for podcast artwork, and they decided from that list that I was the one they wanted to choose. So that was kind of cool. I was also approached by my local tourism office to design a food and drink booklet that they can hand out to people that highlights a lot of the restaurants and nightlife and that sort of thing from the area. So that's a project where we still have to sit down and discuss it, but they've already agreed that they're going to hire me to work on it. We just have the little details to finalize. So that's just a couple of things that I've been up to. Now, in the Resourceful Designer community, we had our 2020 goals meeting. Now, this meeting lasted almost 2 hours. We did this over video chat through Zoom, and it lasted almost 2 hours, and we had a great time discussing what we each want to accomplish in the new year. So we set our goals, actionable goals, SMART goals, if you want to call them that, and we spent time discussing them and figuring out exactly what we want to do and how we're going to accomplish it. And then we listed it out on the community Slack channel for everybody to know what everybody else has in plans and to be able to hold them accountable for it. So I'm absolutely loving this. Now, if you're interested in setting goals for the new year for your business, check out episode 55 of the podcast, which is setting goals for your design business. So that's just one of the things we've done recently in the Resourceful Designer community. There's so many great conversations going on in there. So many people helping each other out. I also want to give a quick shout out to Marcy, who is the newest member. She just joined the community this week. Thank you very much, Marcy. Everybody's already welcomed her and the discussions have started and she's partaking. So I love to see that. And I would love to see you as part of the community as well. If you're interested in having accountability partners, advisors, mentors, just to help out or to just have another like-minded person to have random discussions with, then the community is for you. To join, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/community. And now, this week's resource of the week. Now, this week's resource is not something that I'm actually familiar with. It's something I just discovered. But the reason I want to share it is because from everything I could tell, it actually mimics exactly what one of the features from my Billings program. For my invoicing, I use a software called Billings Pro. I've been using them since I started my business in 2005. And one of the things I love about it is the little timer that stays up in my menu bar that allows me to keep track of time. Anytime I work on a project, I start the timer. Whenever I'm done the project, I stop it, and it automatically adds it to my invoices. It knows exactly how much time I spent on every job, which is great for hourly billing. But it's also good. I can track it and actually tag it as for my eyes only. So I can track how much time I spend on a job, no matter if I'm billing by the hour or if I'm billing a flat rate or project-based or whatever. it allows me to keep track of time. And then I can go back and see how much billable hours that I actually spend last week, last month, last year. Keeps track of all that stuff. But that's a part of my billing software. Well, Mike in the Resourceful Designer community was mentioning this week how he's trying to figure out a way to time track. He's good at time tracking the stuff he's actually working on. What he's not good at time tracking is the other stuff, his own personal work or non-billable things. So I did a little bit of research and I discovered this platform called Clockify.me. And from what I could tell, it works almost identically to what I'm using in Billings Pro. Now, I haven't looked into it very, very well, so I'm not sure if it does add something to the menu bar, but that's just a small thing as long as you have it running open. Then it sounds like it does exactly what mine does. You can define the different time brackets by project, by client. You can set it up just like I can, that if you get up from your computer and you forget to turn off the timer, you can set up a time frame. So for example, after 3 minutes of being inactive, stop the timer. So the computer knows that you haven't moved your mouse, you haven't clicked on anything in 3 minutes, stop the timer. So you're not wasting time and then forgetting, oh, how long was I away from the computer? So some really good features. And the best thing is it's absolutely free to try. There are some premium versions to it, but that's more if you're a team and you need to track employee hours. But most of us, if you're working by yourself, the free version is all you need. Now, there is a downloadable version for Mac, which is what I want to try out. I want to test it out. But if you're not on Mac, there is a web-based version you can use for any platform. So if you're having trouble keeping track, or if it's just something you want to know for yourself, if you design maybe brochures or posters or websites and you want to know how much time does this actually take me, this is a perfect tool, especially considering it's free, to help you keep track of that so that you know in the future how long it takes you to do certain things. So even though I've never actually tried this actual product, the description is almost identical to the product I'm using in Billings Pro. So that's why I'm recommending it. And once again, that website is clockify.me. And that's this week's Resource of the Week. And now, design hacks to increase productivity. You know, when you've been doing any job for as long as I've been doing my job, you tend to pick up a few tricks that help you with your work. In my case, that's design hacks that increase my productivity. And what I want to do today is share some of the easy hacks that I've learned over the years. Some of them I've developed myself, some of them I've learned from other people, and share them with you in the hopes that they can help you become a more productive designer as well. So let's get right down to it. I have 7 hacks to share with you. And hack number 1 is getting the files you require. How many times have you butted heads, gone back and forth with a client in order to get the files you need to complete a project? Or worse, you say something like, I need your logo, and they send you a GIF or a low-res JPEG of their logo that they grabbed off the website. Or even worse than that, they send you a Microsoft Word document with the logo pasted in it. All stuff that's pretty well useless to you. And then you have to go back and forth with them trying to get the right files, and it could be a real pain. Well, one trick that I've learned over the years is, depending on the client, and this won't work with all clients, but if your client is an association, they're a chain, they have some sort of head office somewhere, instead of dealing directly with your client, go directly to the head office because they will know what you need. When I did a project for our local Canadian Heart and Stroke Association, and I started dealing with the person here that needed some work done, and I was having a hard time, I just said, never mind, I'll take care of it. And I called the head office of the Canadian Heart and Stroke Foundation. I got on the phone, got an operator, asked to speak to the marketing department, and I talked to somebody and said, listen, I'm designing something for the local Cornwall branch. I require a copy of your logo in this. And what's even great about them is some of these organizations, every branch has like a tagline on the logo, so it'll say who they are and then the name of the branch associated with it. They asked me, well, which branch is it? I told them which branch, and they sent me a zip file that had all the various logo combinations for that branch, whichever I needed, along with a style guide on how to use them. I received it within about 20 minutes of the phone call, so in less than half an hour of me making a call and then receiving the email, I had everything I needed. The same thing when I did work for Habitat for Humanity. I didn't waste any time. I contacted Habitat for Humanity Canada. Now, I could have gone to the international, but I decided to go with Canada. And it was the same thing. They actually sent me, instead of sending me the files, they sent me login and password to access. They have an online database of all their digital assets. So logos, approved photos, color palettes, style guides, even templates for posters and brochures. They gave me access to all of that so that I didn't have to go through the local person, the local board director, who had no idea what they were talking about when it came to design files. I went straight to the source. The same thing when I was doing, I used to do a snowmobile map for Eastern Ontario. This was a big printed map, and every year we would update it with new trails and new sponsors on it because there were sponsors all over it. Well, some of the sponsors and lists that we had were all the different dealers. So all the Skidoo dealer, the Yamaha dealer, the Polaris dealer, the Articat dealer, and so forth. And instead of asking my clients to get me all the information, I contacted each dealer, and most of them, actually, I think 3 out of those 4 gave me access to their FTP site where I could download any asset I wanted. And the other one just sent me a zip file with a bunch of stuff that I needed. So it was really, really easy. Just contact head office. Now, in some cases, your client might not have a head office. They're the only office available, and they want you to do something. Or in some cases, it might not even be your client. For example, say you're doing a poster for a local event, and a local business is sponsoring that poster, and you need to put their logo on it. Well, now, instead of going to your client, telling them that you need a copy of a logo from this other business, and this client contacting somebody there, and who knows what you're going to get back, you can go directly to the end client. And what I like to do is find a PDF that's associated with that business and then extract the images from the PDF. In case you're not aware, you can open up a PDF in Illustrator and dig through, and oftentimes you can extract the logo from there. And the logo is usually in vector format, depending on who designed the PDF. So a lot of times I just leave my client out of it and go directly to the end person, the end whoever client or whatever you want to call it, find a PDF from them and extract the graphics from it. And that way you get the files you require much faster than asking your clients to take care of it. Now that leads me into design hack number 2, and that's finding the PDF files to extract these images from. And this is a little tip. I shared it a long time ago on the podcast. This is a trick that a lot of people don't even know exists. But say you need to get a logo file or something other file from a client or from anybody, and you want to do it through a PDF, but how do you find those PDFs? You can go digging through their website, clicking through pages to see if there's any PDFs. Or you can go to Google, and in the search bar, you type in site, then the website, so whatever.com, space, file type, all one word, PDF. And what this does is the search results in Google will only list the PDF files that are on that domain. So you're saying, I only want to search this website. For example, if you go in and type site, adobe.com, space, file type, PDF, it'll list every PDF file that is on the domain adobe.com. And then it's a simple matter of quickly looking through the PDFs until you find one with the image you want. I've done this so many times with like Pepsi and McDonald's and other even smaller companies, local companies. I'll go to their website and they might have 2, 3, or they might have, like in Adobe's case, I think they have over 15,000 PDFs on their website. I find one with the imagery I want, download it, and then extract it. And in some cases, the PDF may be locked, but if you listen to last week's episode, I had a tool there, PDF Key Pro, that can actually unlock a locked PDF that will allow you to extract the images that you need from it. So that's a great way of getting these images is through these PDF files. Now, do make sure that you have permission, like you're not just stealing McDonald's or Pepsi's logo for the sake of it. If the local McDonald's is sponsoring an event, then yes, you can ask permission to do that sort of thing. Or if it's a restaurant that is carrying Pepsi brand colas and you need to get all the different drinks that are associated with Pepsi, then yes, you can do it this way because they are already sponsored by Pepsi. They have the permission to use those things. But that's a real quick way to find these PDF files. And I've done it with government sites, with private sites, with charity sites, all sorts of sites. So once again, you just type site, then the website, then space, file type, PDF. And that works. You don't have to search for PDF. If you want to find a JPEG image or if you want to find a Word doc, you just put file type doc, file type JPEG, and it'll find it for you. Now, design hack number 3 is removing the formatting from text. I don't know if you've ever encountered this. It happens mostly with web design, I find, although it does happen with print design as well. To me, I've experienced this more with web design, is when I copy paste, like say a client supplies you the copy for a website, and most of the time they'll supply it to you in a Word document or something like that, and then you copy it, and then you bring it over and paste it into, say, WordPress. Everything looks fine in the back end, but then when you look at the front end, you'll look at the copy and you'll go, that's funny, because paragraph 1 looks like the font is a little bit larger than paragraph 2. I wonder why. And that's because there's some sort of formatting that is copied from Microsoft Word that gets translated into WordPress. And sometimes it's just redundant code. Sometimes, like say, for example, somebody was writing a Word document and they decided to take this one word and make it bold. Well, maybe when they did that, they highlighted the word and they highlighted the space after the word and they bolded it. And then they decide later, I don't want to make it bold anymore. So they highlight the word, but they forget to highlight that space and they make it plain again. Well, that space is bolded. And when you copy that and paste it into WordPress, if you look at the HTML version, the text, as opposed to the visual tab, you look at the text tab, you'll actually see a little span class bold around that space. And it just makes for poor coding and poor website builds. So one of the tricks that I've used for this, and there are many tools that can help clean up, and there's a lot of text applications that can help you clean up. But I find the easiest thing to do for me is I open up Mail. I work on Mail on my Mac. I open up Mail, create a brand new mail, go up to the format menu, and at the bottom of the format menu is make plain text. So now that message is not rich text, it's plain text. There's no formatting to it. And then once I have that window open, anything I want to copy to the website, I'll first copy from a Word document, paste it into that email body. And as soon as I paste it, all formatting is removed from it. And then I can highlight it again and copy it out to put on the website. So it's an extra step. I've got to paste it, highlight it, copy it, and then I go on to WordPress. But I've used this trick over the years to remove formatting. Sometimes I'll just grab the entire Word document and paste it into an email in order to remove the formatting, because then I know that everything is fine. Because it's a real pain when you go in and you start adjusting something and one part of it is not being adjusted. I'm talking about in WordPress, say you want to change the font size or something, and there's one part of it that's not changing. And it could be because it has a span tag on it saying what size font it should be, and no matter what you're doing, it's not affecting it because that span tag's taking precedence. So that's design hack number 3, is just open up a mail window, convert it to plain text, and use it to copy and paste your message in there to remove the formatting. Now, design hack number 4 is creating autoflow documents for print. Now, if you don't know what that means, say you were going to print certificates for a school, and they have 500 certificates, each one with a different name. Well, there's one way you can do it. You can create 500 certificates and type the names out, or you can grab their list of names and drop it into I normally do this in Quark Express, but the same thing works in InDesign, where you create an autoflow document where you create it on the master page, you create an area where the text is going to be, and you link it. And then when you go to your main document, you have one page with that little text box. And when you drop the list of names in there, it automatically generates 500 pages of that certificate, each one with a different name. So this is a great way for adding names to certificates or for numbering raffle tickets or event tickets. I used to do this all the time. When I worked at the print shop and we used to do raffle tickets for people, if they weren't printed on the press, like if they didn't need that many and they were going to be printed on a copier, I would set them up on a letter size sheet, maybe 4 up or 5 up, meaning 5 tickets on a sheet of paper. And then I would number them, and then I would create a PDF document that might be 100 pages long, but every page, the numbers were going up on each ticket. So page 1 would have tickets 1 through 5, then page 2 would have tickets 6 through 10, and so forth and so forth. So if you ever have to create any sort of numbered tickets or name tags or certificates or anything like that, even mail merges where you're sending stuff to different people and you want their names and that on it, creating autoflow documents is the way to do it. Now, I know explaining this on audio is not that easy, so I did find a really cool YouTube video that explains how to do it, so I'll link to that in the show notes. But learning how to create autoflow documents like this can save you a lot of time. Now, design hack number 5 is to clean up formatted text using find and replace. Have you ever received text from a client that's in a Word document and it might have bullet lists and it has indents and all that? And when you go to use the text, you find out that they didn't use the proper way to indent. When they indented, they pressed the tab key. They went tab, 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 tab. Or worse, to get something from one page to the next, instead of hitting a page return, they would hit carriage return and do like carriage return, carriage return, carriage return, and keep hitting it until the content they wanted flowed to the next page. Or worse yet, in order to line stuff up, instead of using the tab, they'd use the space bar and they'd just do like 100 spaces in order to move something to the right-hand side of the page, instead of creating a proper tab for it. Well, all of that formatting, I remember being back at the print shop and watching some of the other designers there go through a document. Maybe it was for a brochure or worse yet, a book, and go through page by page and delete these things and fix them. And it used to bug me because it is so easy to fix this sort of formatting issue using find and replace. And it doesn't matter. I use it in Quark Express, but you can use it in InDesign. What I do is I put a document or the text into a blank document. I usually don't do this on the brochure or book that I'm working on. I'll create a brand new document, paste all the text into it, and then I'll start my find and replace in order to clean up the formatting. And what I'll do is I'll say, okay, find all cases where you've got 5 tabs in a row and replace them with 1 tab. And then I search the entire document, changing them. Then I'll go back and I'll say, okay, now search for every case that has 2 tabs in a row and replace them with 1 tab. And I run through it. And then I run through it again. And I keep running through it until it says that it can't find any. So now I know that everywhere there's a tab is just a single tab. Then I'll do the same thing with spaces. I'll say anywhere that has 5 spaces in a row, make it 1 space. And I'll run that a couple of times. Then I'll say, okay, now everywhere that has 2 spaces, create 1 space until every space in the entire document is 1 space. And then it's just a matter of creating a list of different things to look for. So in some cases, I said you reduce the tabs to 1 tab, but maybe you don't want those tabs there. So then I would do a search for, say, carriage return tab. Anywhere that's a carriage return tab, I just want it to be a carriage return. I don't want that extra tab. So then that eliminates most of the tabs. The same thing with spaces. I don't want a space at the beginning of a sentence, or the beginning of a paragraph, I should say. So I will say, search for anywhere where there's a carriage return followed by a space and replace it with just a carriage return with no space. And the trick is to just go through the entire document, finding all the little problems with it, and then replacing them through find and replace. And using this method can save you hours of time. I could take a 100-page book and clean up the formatting in a matter of 2 minutes using this method. Now, that's cleaning up the formatting that's there. That's not reformatting the book. Then you have to go through and you have to add in your own tabs and your own spaces and your own whatever you need. But you're doing it the proper way so that you know that instead of just hitting the space bar 10 times, you're going to set a tab at a certain place in the document, and you know that everything that you hit a tab key will automatically jump to that one spot. You do it properly. And that's how you properly format a book or a brochure or anything else. So that was design hack number 5, is clean up formatting using find and replace to remove any of the objects you don't want and replace them with something desirable. Now, design hack number 6 is how to find inspiration that matches a color palette that you may be working with. Maybe you're familiar with Google's reverse image search. That's where instead of typing up your query, you can actually upload an image to Google and say, find this image or similar images. And it'll usually find what other websites or areas on the web that have that exact image. And sometimes it'll find similar. So if it's a man talking on a cell phone, it'll find other photos of a man talking on a cell phone. But did you know if you have a color palette, like in my case, I use coolers to create color palettes when I'm working on a project. Well, I take a screen capture of just the colors. I just highlight the colors, so it'll be 5 different colors. And I upload that screen capture to Google in a reverse Google image search. And yes, it'll show me a few color palettes that are similar in that. But if you scroll down, there's an area in the search results called visually similar images. And if you open that up, it'll show you all sorts of things that have a similar color palette to the one you're working with. So it'll show you photos and stuff like that, but it'll also show you design layouts, posters, brochures, websites, all sorts of stuff that use the same color palette as what you uploaded. So maybe you're trying to get some inspiration. It's a great way to find something. If you already know that you're working in a pastel color palette, then it's a great way to find other designs that are using a pastel color palette or a color palette that uses blue, green, and brown. Well, it'll find other ideas and it could give you inspiration. Now, again, this is not for you to go steal ideas, but it's for you to get inspiration from. So it's a great trick, a great hack that I use often in order to get ideas and inspiration. Is I'll just grab the color palette, which is just 5 stripes of color, upload it to Google's reverse image search, and then look at the visually similar images. And you'll be amazed at how well it can find those colors and present you with just designs, layouts, and everything in that color palette. And my last design hack is a way to find the flaws in your designs. And this is something I learned many, many, many years ago. And it is, when it comes time to look at your design, turn it upside down. It is amazing how the eye can miss things in a design when you're used to seeing it in one way. But by flipping everything upside down, first of all, you've got less chance of actually reading. So if there's headlines and text and body copy and all sorts of stuff, turning it upside down, there's less chance that your eye is actually trying to read the copy. You are actually now looking at the visual elements on their own and not trying to decipher them as what is this saying. And by turning something upside down, you can sometimes pinpoint little flaws that you never noticed when it was right side up. Maybe there's an area on a poster that has too much white space. Now, I know we say white space is great, but not if it's creating a hole in the middle of a design for no particular reason. And it's something you might not notice when you're looking at it straight up, but when you turn it upside down, that hole sometimes becomes glaringly obvious. And then you know that you might have to adjust some stuff, move some stuff around in order to shrink that area or add something to it. Or in some cases, take something away if you want more of that white space. The other thing that's great is when you have a lot of copy, maybe you're doing a brochure or a flyer or something that has a lot of body copy on it, turning it upside down will help you identify rivers within the copy. And if you're not sure what that means, is a river is when the spaces between words on multiple lines of text kind of line up so that it creates a path, like a blank space that follows from one line down through the paragraph. And it's one of those things that good typographers try to avoid. You don't want to create those rivers in your text. Well, it's a lot easier to spot them when you turn your work upside down. This was actually a trick that I learned from a pressman when I used to work at the print shop. The head pressman, anytime he would pull a press copy off of the printing press, he would bring it over. He had a light table that had neutral light to view it perfectly. He would always put it upside down because he said he didn't want his eye to be distracted by the visual elements, the photos, what they look like, the headings, how they read. He wanted to look at the actual flow and placement of everything to make sure that his printing job was done well. But the same goes whenever you're proofing something. It helps you figure out your layouts. It helps you see what's wrong, what's right, what can be improved upon. It also helps you figure out if things are aligning properly. It just gives you a different perspective by not seeing it the way you've been used to seeing it. So that's the final hack that I have, is when you want to proof your design, turn it upside down and take a look at it. You'd be amazed at all the little things that you can find that can possibly use improving. So those are just some of the hacks that I've learned over the many years that I've been in this industry. I thought I'd share a few of them with you. Maybe you already know these. Even if you just learned one of them and put it to use, it'll help you become that much more productive. So once again, these design hacks, getting the files that you require by either calling head offices or extracting files from PDFs, finding the PDF files you need by doing a Google search for site : the website space file type : PDF, removing formatting from text before using it in WordPress or anywhere else that the formatting may be retained, simply by using a plain text email document and pasting the formatted text into it, which automatically removes the formatting, and then copying it from there to wherever its final destination is. Then there was creating autoflow documents. If you do make certificates, name tags, anything that's numbered, it's a quick and easy way to create hundreds, if not thousands, of pages that you can then send to print that will be sequentially numbered or named or whatever. Then there was cleaning up formatted text using find and replace to remove all the flaws in text that people that have no idea what they're doing do, like the tab or space or so forth. Easily clean up an entire book worth of formatting in just a couple of minutes using find and replace. Then there was finding inspiration through a Google image search, a reverse image search of a color palette, and then looking at the visually similar images in order to get inspiration for that color palette. And finally, find the flaws in your design by looking at it upside down. So those are 7 of the hacks that I've used over the years that have really helped me become a more productive designer. And I hope they do the same for you. Now, I would love to know what design hacks you use. Please head on over to resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 195 and leave a comment letting me know what hacks you use in your design business to become a more proficient designer. So thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate you sticking around till the end. If you want even more discussion on this and so many other design topics related to growing your business, why not consider joining the Resourceful Designer community at resourcefuldesigner.com/community. And if you need help keeping track of the time you spend working on projects or working on your own stuff or working on non-billable things, check out this week's Resource of the Week, which is clockify.me. So thank you very much for tuning in. I look forward to continuing the discussion in next week's episode. But until then, I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business and reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.